The reason why I think we should have a strategic Bitcoin reserve, I know you guys had Michael Saylor on your show, and I think he's onto something. There is something called like the mass adoption theory, which is over a period of time, like the English language, US dollar, things just catch on and they're just kind of volitional and there's no stopping it. I think Bitcoin is that. You got to watch out though. Quantum computing could potentially crack cryptography.
But if they do that, then they're also cracking bank accounts.
Right.
And stock trading
Yeah,
accounts.
So quantum is the only asterisk on all this. But I think Saylor is onto something very profound, which is that because Bitcoin is a scarce, legitimately scarce resource that is probably going to go nowhere but up. So Saylor makes a very provocative argument that Bitcoin could go up 10x over the next 10 years or something like that, which therefore if we start a Bitcoin strategic reserve, it could like pay for the national debt and like basically cover our losses on the deficit. But I think that I think the United States government should be invested in crypto without a doubt.
I tend to agree with Michael Saylor that it's more likely to go to 1 million than 0.
Yes, I think that's right. And by the way, so you have a problem with the world's richest people. They don't know where to put their money. So there's only so many penthouses in London and Paris that they could buy. There's only so many ranches in Wyoming that they could buy. And so we had this problem. So you create all this money, the money goes upwards to wealth inequality point. To your earlier point, the question is then, well, what do rich people do with money? There's only so many equities they can buy. There's only so many shares in NVIDIA and Apple and Microsoft that they could justify. Well, money needs to find a home, and it's found a home in Bitcoin. And so once it has mass adoption, and literally the wealthiest families on the planet are starting to park serious monies in Bitcoin. And because it's scarce, it's easy to transfer, and it's just a winner. Sometimes there's a mass adoption and it just rises to the surface. And I think Bitcoin is that.
Charlie Kirk is sitting here telling you his thoughts on Bitcoin and what's happening in the ecosystem. And during this conversation, he says, yeah, he thinks Bitcoin is more higher likely to go to 1 million than it is to 0. Bitcoin bros agree with that sentiment. But guess what? If it goes to 1 million, it's going to 2 million, it's going to 5 million, and it's going to 10 million. We hope your bags are packed. With that, what's happening, Crypto Crew? Sean's coming back at you with another cryptocurrency video. Getting straight into it. Looking at the current time it's recording, Bitcoin's coming in at 107.4K. What do we see? What do we anticipate? So the last time we were in a range like this, where we just were trading sideways to down, I guess you could say this right here. And when we were in this oversold territory, in the Fisher indicator, we had a retracement down before we popped up. So right now we are in overbought territory, overbought for the Fisher indicator. So could we get a cool off, a pullback, before we ultimately have this blast up out of this downwards channel? We hit our head on 112, 110, and 108. And the current time it's recording, we're sitting above the 20 moving average. This looks like a big bull flag. We showed you this before, but this is what we see for Bitcoin. Bitcoin is bullish. We do get that pullback. Could just be, once again, a higher low. We could get a triple bottom coming out if we do get that pullback. So just be mindful of what could be coming. Arthur Hayes is weighing in on what he thinks is going to happen to Bitcoin.
Trump is going to spend more money, have a bigger deficit than Biden. It's just math. And the priorities of the administration. And so I can see Bitcoin going up 10x from here to $1 million by 2028, especially if we get a change in sort of the Fed and they come back on side and they do quantitative easing, they start cutting rates. And, as you said, Powell's term ends in May 2026. Everyone believes that Kevin Warsh will be the next Fed governor, and he's gone on record basically saying the Fed is not independent. The Fed should do whatever the president and the politicians want, which means print the money, give more of it to the system to act as stimulus. And so I see an acceleration of money printing and fiscal debasement in May 26 onwards, and that's probably when we get the sort of crazy runs in Bitcoin and other sort of fixed supply assets.
So there you hear from Arthur Hayes. It's simple math. Bitcoin is going up and to the right. This current administration is going to spend more money. The writing's on the wall. Looking at some other price action, mtplf is up to 11.55 as of close. And you look at the Japanese markets right now at the current time it's recording, they are sitting around 1624. And 1624 is roughly around 1130. So right now, we're just basing them between 11 and 1150. Will we get that continuation to the upside? We showed you the technical targets to the upside. Could we be up over $50 before the year's out? A lot could happen. MicroStrategy at the close of today, eligible for S&P inclusion. Major news. And as you see, the price broke 400K with that news at the close, 404. And in the short to mid-term, we could be seeing this little micro bull flag pattern play out. If we just came in, traded our way, blast up to the upside, this target would be up to 584. We actually could get a wick up to 600. So that's what we could see in the short to mid-term with this news. If we do get an official announcement, things could get very bullish quickly. So now you have MicroStrategy, you have Metaplanet that's been buying Bitcoin very crazily. What you got to pay attention to is this chart here to see what's better for your investment thesis. This is the 350 over MSTR. And as you see, there's a lot more upside potential from mtplf in comparison to MicroStrategy. So keep this in mind. When you fall off a cliff, this is when, Metaplanet melted against MicroStrategy, and then it just sort of had a basing out effect. And right now, we didn't get back above that 200 moving average. Things are still pointing to the downways, but could Metaplanet come back up towards this resistance in the short to mid-term? If so, that's going to be over a 300% return against MicroStrategy, a 4x appreciation. So basically, if we see MicroStrategy go up to say 1500, you're talking about roughly a 3.5x. That means Metaplanet would do 4 times that. Getting out your calculator, so you said 3.5x from MicroStrategy, and then if Metaplanet does a 300% gain against that, you're talking about a 14x from where Metaplanet is right now, which we taking Metaplanet up to, at the current time of this recording, we see Metaplanet at $11.55 as the previous close, $160 Metaplanet. Is this realistic? You be the judge. It depends on how high Bitcoin goes. It depends if Metaplanet can keep buying Bitcoin at an aggressive rate. But as you see, if we get this rounding bottom to the upside, has to get above this red line. We have not had that happen yet. This is the 2-week. If we look on the lower time frame, this looks even more bullish. Why do we say that? Because right now the price action is above all. We actually had a flattening out of this red line, and this looks like we could get a continuation as this 20 moving average continues to creep up. And if we zoom out on the charts, once again we can see this support line, support line, support line. How far are we from that support line? We can see that is roughly a 250% gain. So there could be a lot of steam in the engine for Metaplanet. Keep this in mind. And right here you see American BTC, which is co-founded by Eric Trump and majority owned Hut 8 Corp, raised $200 million via a private placement, including $10 million worth of shares exchanged directly for Bitcoin. Why is this massive news? Because you're seeing Eric Trump in the news, which is the current standing president's son, getting very heavily involved into the Bitcoin ecosystem and invested. If you don't see what's happening and what writing's on the wall, then you're sleeping under a rock. And right here, in the meantime, between time, BlackRock is still buying their latest buy, 1,035 Bitcoin. They purchased 37,000 Bitcoins in June alone. The ETF inflows is astronomical, and they are up to almost 700,000 Bitcoin. There's only 21 million. Do you have your share? And right here, this is how you should be. When you're talking to people about Bitcoin, a lot of people that don't understand it's like, oh, I don't do financial freedom, just staying poor for me, thanks. This is what happens to those that don't understand Bitcoin. Refusing Bitcoin in 2025 is like refusing the internet in 1999. And with that, if you guys like this content, go ahead and smash the like button. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and show us some love. We appreciate each and every one of you. With that, I'm out.